Pleasant good morning to you wherever it is you watching us from. Kindly let us know the audio quality. Please do inform us of the quality of audio. Please let us know by leaving a comment as we try to do some adjustments here with our audio. Please leave a comment. Kindly leave a comment and let us know the quality of the audio. Kindly let us know the quality of the audio by just leaving a comment. We're right before Criminal Code C. My name is Diamond Slanger. I'm here with Jurassic Joe producing. Please let us know the quality of the audio by leaving a comment. Just comment on the quality of the audio, if it's good, if it's excellent, if it's fair, if it's poor, if it needs tweaking, so that we can do technical adjustments when needed. But kindly let us know the quality of the audio. Please let us know the quality of the audio so that we can continue with this live broadcast. We're right before Criminal Code C here at the Temple of Justice. If the quality is excellent, do let us know. If the quality is poor, kindly let us know as well if it needs adjustments, so that we can do that to bring you a very professional coverage here from the grounds of the Temple of Justice. We're right before Criminal Code C. All right.
So why is it like that? You know, probably doesn't go. I'm up with some water. To take the witness stand. So as we speak, he's currently providing testimony. This is his second day. You know, recognize ourselves. Now, I want to ask the man, should I know how I met? They were riding with water where he prayed to allow him as a practicing to go and observe Friday prayers. Hence today, this is second day of providing testimony in the case of a several months who gave me a news that are facing a count of other charges, a count of multiple charges. So I want to bring you up to see what is currently unfolding inside of the see before we go back and recap on how did we get here today. But if you see our producer is trying to adjust whether the audio has got some problem, please let us know.
Quality of the audio, then we can proceed with this live podcast as well. So please let us know the quality of the audio as we try to do some tweaking. Testing 2. So folks, kindly let us know the quality of the audio. Please do that. We are doing our best to make sure the audio quality is good, so that we continue with this live broadcast. Please let us know the quality of the audio. Just kindly leave a comment. Do leave a comment. Let us know the audio quality so that we can continue this live broadcast from Criminal Code C. So folks, please let us know the quality, the audio quality, as you observe, as you monitor as well, to make sure that the sound is good. All right, so thank you for your feedback. So the suspended Director General of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, the LDEA, Colonel Abraham Kromah, is currently providing testimony before the court here at the Temple of Justice. This is Criminal Court C. The witness is, this is his second day of providing testimony, and we want to give you real time what is unfolding in the court. And then we'll go back to the history of this case. How did we get here? So the defense witness, remember, he is a defense witness, though he did not appear on behalf of the defense willingly. He was subpoenaed by Criminal Court C to appear after a petition was filed by the defense counsel to have Colonel Abraham Kromah subpoena. He's not the only one from the hierarchy of the LDEA. The current officer in charge of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, Christopher Peters, also did appear to provide. He was subpoenaed to provide evidence to this case as well. So what we can tell you, what is unfolding in there, the witness took the stand for the second day. As I said, Friday he appeared the first time. That his appearance was cut short because he pleaded with the court to go and observe Friday prayers as well. He's also being questioned by the defense counsel. This is their direct questioning, and after that he will be cross-examined by the prosecution as well. So he was asked by the defense whether or not he appeared on Spoon Talk on the Spoon Network last night, but the state lawyers objected to the question that the witness should not answer said question. So the defense asked the witness, Colonel Abraham Kromah, as to whether or not he appeared on the Spoon Network last night, but the prosecution did object to that question, that the witness shouldn't answer the question. So what we'll be doing is we'll be bringing you exactly what's unfolding in there in Criminal Court C. But the question is, how did we get here? Why is the suspended Director General of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency providing testimony in this case? How was he brought here to provide testimony? Is he a willing witness? The question is no, he was not, and is not a willing witness. He has been compelled by the court through a subpoena to appear and provide evidence. Well, there are two types of subpoenas that can be issued by Criminal Court C. There is the subpoena a testificano. For those of you who are lawyers, the Latin, the Greek terminologies and all of that, the subpoena a testificano is where you appear before the court, you subpoena, you compelled by the court to appear and give oral testimony. That is solely based on oral testimony. And there is the subpoena duchesticum, if I got the pronunciation right. That one, that particular subpoena, you must appear before the court and not only provide oral testimony, but also to provide evidence, material evidence to the effect. As of now, we cannot substantiate and accurately tell you which of these two subpoenas is the LDEA director, the suspended LDEA director general still under, whether it's a subpoena a testificano or is a subpoena to testicon. As to which is which, we did see him enter the courtroom earlier today wearing a blue jacket, blue-like pants, and a sky blue-like shirt. He did enter the court. We didn't see him with documents in his hands as to whether the group of men that accompanied him in the courtroom have got in their possession documents. That is, if he's under the subpoena to testicum to bring forth evidence or not. Again, we cannot substantiate or which of these two subpoenas is he under. But what we can tell you is he's been subpoenaed by the court to provide evidence in a case involving a 31,000 plus United States dollars drug bust. So we'll bring you all of the details of this particular case and also bring you live happenings from Criminal Court C. All right. So this operation happened on the 21st of February 2024 in the Seontown area, Logantown, Bushra Island. That was just 1 day shy of the 1 month anniversary of President Boakai's inauguration. The UP standard bearer, when elected as president, talked and campaigned vehemently against the fight against drugs in our country. So this bust was one of a number of drug busts that were carried out by the Kromah-led administration at the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency. It was met with a lot of cheering from residents of the Sion Town community, where residents spoke that individuals who were arrested, including the main suspect or the prime defendant in this case, one guy known by his alias Original Japan. Residents were jubilating that this fellow Original Japan was arrested. They had given accounts, and they had alluded to the fact that he's been a very notorious drug baron and all of those things. But this is the court of law, where it is not about opinions, it's about what you can prove. And this is a criminal case, so it's about proving beyond reasonable doubt. But just to go back on the history of this case, this bust happened on the 21st of February 2024 in the Sion Town community, Logan Town, Bushra Island. And those who were arrested had in their possessions, and I named those who were arrested. I did count 9 suspects. 9 co-defendants were walked into the court wearing their orange corrections jumpsuit. And those on the list include George Obi, known as Original Japan, Peter Mana, and others. They were found in possession of controlled substances, including kush, heroin, marijuana, and tramadol. The total quantity of these illicit substances that I mentioned, kush, heroin, marijuana, and tramadol, were more than 1.4 kilograms. And they've been arrested on several charges, including unlawful distribution of controlled substances, the maintenance and distribution of drugs, selling harmful drugs, and the rest. So again, I want to list the names of the defendants, and we'll go back to Colonel Kromah testimony currently ongoing in Criminal Court C. So let me bring you some pardon the so there seems to be some commotion happening there between officers of the court and officers of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, the LDEA. So what we're hearing is the judge has ordered the sheriff there, who's got the papers under his arm, wearing the khaki suit. So that is just one of the other things happening here outside of the court, and that has caused the testimony to come to a pause in court. They've been told that they are disturbing the proceedings of the court. There is a commotion between court officers and officers of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency. So folks, back to what is unfolding. We just want to peep in the court and see. Okay, so Judge Blamo Dixon is still presiding. The commotion has somewhat subsided and been shifted to another side of the court. But just to give you back what we were to our history of this case, as I said, on the 21st of February 2024, the LDEA then went on a drug raid, a drug bust in the Sion Town community, Logan Town, Bushra Island, where a quantity of illicit drugs ranging from kush, marijuana, heroin were seized during that drug bust, and the suspects were arrested, much to the cheering of the community dwellers and much to the hailing of the Liberian populace, especially when the government had just taken office. President Briger had just been inaugurated 1 month shy of this operation, and it showed a significant push or a significant step in the fight against illicit drugs in our country. Those suspects include George Obi, Peter Mana, Edwin Ozioko, Nobudisi Okonko, Igwe David, Sunday Ude, and others. So they were indicted by the grand jury of Montserrado County on multiple charges. These charges include the unlawful maintenance and distribution of controlled substances, unlicensed sale and distribution of controlled drugs, and criminal conspiracies. Those were some of the charges against them. Now, the case did come to trial, but prior to coming to trial, the defense during the pre-trial hearing had filed a motion to suppress evidence. According to the defense, when they filed the motion during the pre-trial hearing, they opted and prayed on the court to suppress the evidence on grounds that evidence were illegally gotten from the compound of original Japan. The stress on the processes that were carried out by the LDEA, the stress that the warrant didn't specify what were to be searched and what were to be seized. But that particular motion was denied by the judge during the pre-trial hearing, and the motion to suppress evidence was denied. Hence, the trial then proceeded to Criminal Court C. After the pre-trial hearings, now the trial date was set. The defense, if what you know that Colonel Kromah is here, is because he has been subpoenaed as a defense witness. He didn't come here willingly to provide testimony. He was compelled by the court to provide testimony. Again, as I stated earlier, there are two types of subpoena. There is the subpoena a testificando, where you come to the court and you don't present any evidence. You come to give oral testimony. And there is the subpoena duchesticon, where you have to come to the court and you bring evidence and testify to the evidence as well. We did not see Colonel Kromah entering the court with any documents or whatsoever. This is his second day. His first day of testifying was on Friday of last week. That was cut short. Now, there is the argument of CCTV footage. Remember, this is a criminal trial. It's to be prosecuted beyond all reasonable doubt. The defense is saying that CCTV footage was tampered with or gotten by the LDEA, and it can prove to the innocence of the main suspect, George Obi, known as Original Japan. But according to our sources, what we've gathered from the testimony of day one, that the DEA did state that the CCTV cameras, over 20, if you're counting the number of CCTV cameras that were installed at that particular compound, is over 20, that those cameras were not recording during the time of the operation. According to the testimony, what we gathered was the DEA, after several unsuccessful raids, after several unsuccessful attempts to raid the compound of Original Japan, they argue that he had been tipped off previously, and whenever there is to be a raid, with the surveillance from the CCTV camera, they are able to allegedly destroy evidence. So using their own operational techniques, they were able to have asked the LEC to switch off the electricity around that vicinity, and they had their sources within the compound of Original Japan who switched off the generator, so they couldn't have been alerted to the arrival of the LDEA agents and operatives. Hence, they were able to have retrieved the 1.4 kilograms of different narcotic drugs and substances. Well, the defense is arguing that there was more than what was done. There are other things that the CCTV footage could have proven, but the LDE is arguing that during the operation period, the CCTV cameras were not operating. During the time their operation was ongoing, the CCTV cameras were not in action. And that if Original Japan is arguing that he is not a drug baron, in his defense, he did state that, look, I own a compound. There are so many other occupants of the compound. They could have been the ones involved in illicit drug trafficking and distribution and sale. he didn't get involved in that. But the argument of the prosecution is, how can you be the owner of a compound and not know what is unfolding in your compound, especially the sale, the distribution, the maintenance of illegal substances? The prosecution also argued that if Original Japan is arguing that he does not know anything about what was unfolding, he does not know anything about the illicit sale, the illicit maintenance, the distribution of narcotic substance in his compound, why is it that the entire CCTV camera unit, the monitoring unit, is in his room? That he's the one who's in charge of overseeing all of the different camera angles and seeing where all of the feeds are being distributed. He has got the central monitoring unit. He monitors everything. So if he's saying he does not know that drugs were being sold, drugs were being distributed, drugs were being maintained in his compound, why is it all of the cameras, their feed, their monitoring device was in his room, and he's the one who oversees everything? Well, there's also the argument that the LDEA is also going to speak through its suspended Director General and officer in charge on the issue of how they operate. How do they operate? How do they go on drug raids? What are the procedures involved before they go on a drug raid? We just witnessed another raid that happened at the behind the headquarters of the CDC that spilled into the compound of the CDC, and later the raid was found to have been an illegal raid and all of these things. But that is not the case being heard today. What is being heard is the case involving 9 co-defendants and 31,000 United States dollars worth of drugs. So let's go back to the courtroom and tell you what's unfolding there in Criminal Court C. So the defense asked Kromah to confirm the testimony he made last Friday about an order he gave to the LDEA to cut off the generator, what I just told you about, to cut off the generator that supply electricity to the CCTV in order to prevent the drug lord from viewing officers as they were carrying on the operation and arrest. So the defense here is trying to paint the picture that, look, if you ordered for the generator to be switched off in order to assist your operation, meaning there was absolutely no other overview or oversight of what the operation entailed, meaning you operated with impunity. There is no evidence to the effect. And what we're getting from our source in the court is that the suspended LDEA Director General has answered none of the questions, because all of the questions are being objected to by the prosecution, and the court sustained these objections, thus preventing the witness from answering. So all of the questions being posed by the defense counsel have not been answered by Colonel Kromah, according to what is unfolding in the court. All of the questions asked by the defense. Question number 1, did you appear on Spoon Network last night? And the prosecution objected. The judge sustained that objection. Question number 2, did you order, as you said last Friday, that the generator in the compound of Original Japan be switched off so as not to alert the drug baron and so that DEA operators can carry on their functions? Again, that question was objected to by the prosecution, and that objection was sustained by the court. So far, his second day of testifying, Colonel Abraham Kromah, the suspended Director General of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, has not answered any of the questions posed by the defense. Now he's still undergoing direct examination because he is the witness of the defense. They will go at him first and ask him direct questions, and after that there would be cross-examination by the prosecution. A recap on what is unfolding here: he is not here willingly. He has been compelled to appear by a subpoena issued by Judge Blamo C. Dixon of Criminal Court C. So the testimony is still ongoing in court, and will bring you all of what is unfolding. But as this case is being heard in court, it is also being played out in the public. There is the unsubstantiated information about 375,000 United States dollars that were allegedly taken away by the suspended LDEA boss, 2 million Liberian dollars, a vehicle, and all of those things. And if he's going to answer to all of those questions, then we'll find out whether or not he did all his operatives did take away money from the operation? And if so, how much was taken? Did they take away vehicle or vehicles from the operation? If so, how many vehicles were taken? But this is also playing in the public sphere as well. Remember, the very Republic of Liberia lost $100 million drug case right here at the very same Temple of Justice. And that alone deflated a lot of Liberians, their hopes, their ambitions, in geared towards the fight against drugs in our country. If the prosecution is going to score a home run, that is to have all 9 defendants convicted beyond all reasonable doubt, the testimonies of those who are in charge and those who were in charge of this operation will be pivotal, because if the defense is able to establish that there were procedural error, there were missteps in all of what was done, then it means that the entire arrest and those arrested will be deemed as the fruit of the poisonous tree. They might just get away on a technicality. So far, the testimony of Colonel Kromah, the suspended Director General of the LDEA, and the testimony of Christopher Peters, the current officer in charge of the LDEA, is to speak to procedures and to how they carry out their operations and operations as well. So let's see if we can get more updates from the court for you. But so far, Colonel Kromah has not answered any of the questions posted to him so far from the defense counsel. So let's see if we can get more updates. We're fishing for updates for you. But let's go back to the names of the suspects who are currently facing trial here in court. So the names of the suspects are George Obi, alias Original Japan; Peter Mana; Edwin Ozioko; Nubo DC Okonko; Igwe David; Sunday Ude, and several others. So we did count 9 co-defendants who have made their way to court earlier this morning. Colonel Kromah, who's currently on the witness stand, is wearing a blue jacket or blazer, if you want to call it that way, blue pants, and sky blue undershirt as well. He was all smiles. He was escorted in the court by, several of his loyalists, if you want to call them that way, several of his supporters who've been informed that there is also a very heavy presence of his supporters and sympathizers there in Criminal Court C. So we want to bring you more updates. This entire court case stemmed from a drug bust that occurred on the 21st of February 2024 in the Seontown community, Logantown, Bushra Island. Today, the defendants are facing several charges against them by the grand jury. They were indicted by the grand jury of Montserrado County on multiple charges. These charges include the unlawful maintenance and distribution of controlled substances, unlicensed sale and distribution of controlled substances, and criminal conspiracy. So the indictment is telling us in plain English that the defendants, all 9 of them, conspired criminally to distribute controlled substances, that they conspired criminally to be engaged in the sale of controlled substances, that they conspired criminally to unlawfully maintain unlicensed substances in the country. So they all are facing the same charges. It is not individual trial that is ongoing. They all facing these charges as a group. So it's a joint trial that is currently ongoing there in Criminal Court C. How this trial pans out, what will be the outcome of this trial, is going to go a long way, not just if these defendants are not convicted, if they let go of by the court on the fact that the prosecution was unable to prove beyond reasonable doubts that they were liable of all these charges, or there were technicalities, is going to deflect the fight against drugs in our country. If they are convicted by all of the evidence and testimony provided, it is going to be a boost
to somewhat the already low morale of the fight against drugs in our country. So wherever it is you're watching us from, the procedures of the LDEA is under question here. How they carried out operations is also under question here. How they store evidence, how they maintain evidence is also under question here. And as a whole, the fight against drugs in our country is also under question here. So we want to go back to the court and see if we have additional information. We're still on the previous information that we've gathered. That as of our last update, Colonel Kromah has not answered any of the questions posed to him so far by the defense counsel. Remember, he is a subpoenaed witness. He didn't come here willingly. He was compelled by the court to appear here after the defense have filed a petition to the judge that they want Abraham Kromah, who was in charge of the LDEA on the 21st of February 2024 when said operation happened. So on Friday of last week, Colonel Kromah, during his first day of testimony, did give evidence to the court. He said that yes, there's been several attempts, fruitless attempts, to have raided the home of this prime suspect, the owner of the compound, George Obi, known as Original Japan. He has gotten tip-offs on numerous occasions, and hence the LDA were unable to, have arrested him at the time. But on this fateful day, they had gotten a search and seizure warrant. They proceeded to the house with tip-off that the CCTV cameras that are placed around the house, strategically around the house, over 20 pieces of these cameras were used as a means to alert the occupants whenever law enforcement is approaching. So according to his own testimony, on the day of the operation, they had asked the LEC to turn off the lights in that area, and also had their source within the compound of Original Japan to turn off the generator as well. That would have enabled them to have entered the compound undetected. The defense is actually working this angle. The defense is working this angle to show that, look, if you can switch off the generator, if you can have the entire CCTV camera that would have served as material evidence, the footage to serve as material evidence as to how you conducted the search, what did you take when you conducted the search, then it also tells us that you conducted this search without any type of oversight, any type of evidence gathered video to show us what did you do, what didn't you do, did you encroach in areas that you were not supposed to have encroached upon. The defense is working the angle that if it wasn't done well at all, it wasn't done properly and it shouldn't count. That is the angle the defense is working. The defense is not working that, oh, drugs were not found in the compound, that, oh yeah, we don't know of the drugs, even though Original Japan tried to play that in his defense, that he didn't know what was happening in the compound. That was quickly, squashed by the prosecution in their objection, in their counter, argument that how can you be the owner of the compound? How can you be the overlord of the compound and say you do not know what is happening in the compound? How can you be the one who sees all of the footage coming from the numerous CCTV cameras that are mounted across this property, seeing everything? You have eyes all over the compound and say you don't know what is happening. How can you say you don't know what is happening? And in your kitchen cabinet, according to the DEA, illicit drugs were also found in the kitchen cabinet of Original Japan. So now the angle being worked by the defense is, how did you carry out the process? Remember, as I said to you earlier, during the pre-trial hearing, the defense filed for a motion to suppress evidence on the argument that the evidence or the pieces of evidence were not gotten legally, that there were missteps in the process, and hence if the pieces of evidence were not gotten legally, then they cannot be admissible in court. And if there is not concrete evidence by the prosecution, there is a very large probability that they might not get these guys convicted. So we want to see if we can bring you more updates. The updates are coming in slowly, so we have to keep recapping what is ongoing there in court. But Colonel Abraham Kromah is still on the witness stand, and he is giving his testimony for the second day. He was here on Friday,
That testimony was cut short. His appearance on the witness stand was cut short because he pleaded with the court that he needed to have gone to observe Friday prayers. Hence, he's here today. He took the witness stand as early as 11 o'clock. So looking at our time here, he's been on that stand for approximately 39 minutes. From what we've gathered, again, until we can get further updates, he has not answered any of the questions that were directed at him by the defense counsel. The first question was, did you appear on Spoon Network last night? But the state objected and said the question shouldn't be answered by the witness, and that objection was sustained by the judge. The second question, the defense asked Colonel Kromah to confirm his testimony he made on last Friday about an order he gave the LDEA to cut off the generator that supplied electricity to the CCTV in order to prevent the drug lord from viewing the officers as they carried on their operation and arrest. Interestingly, again, the state objected to that question being answered by the witness, and that objection was sustained by the judge. We're still trying to get you more updates, but the suspended LDEA director, Colonel Abraham Kromah, is still on the witness stand and is still giving his testimony. I step off the camera for a minute as we try to get you more information. All right, folks, this is what we call the presenter's curse. Just as you make a statement, that statement can be countered by nature or by fate. So another question the defense asked is, to the witness, Colonel Abraham Kromah, is, do you confirm that the drugs found in the home of Mr. Obi, original Japan, after the LDEA charged him with unlawful maintenance of the place, Mr. Kromah answered that the sheriff of the court agreed to the seizure of the drugs in the home of the drug lord, and that all of what was arrested during that day was witnessed by the sheriff, who was present to carry out the search and seizure warrant. So the question from the defense to the witness was whether he can confirm that the drugs found in the home of Mr. Obi after the LDEA charged him with unlawful maintenance of the place. So the defense again is working the angle that the LDEA charged him with the unlawful maintenance of drugs and all of that after they had gone into his residence. And Colonel Kromah then answered that all of what was found, the entire arrest process, though the CCTV footage, the CCTV cameras were not operational, though the generator was switched off, though there was not electricity at the time, but the sheriff of the court was present and the sheriff witnessed, all of what was happening, what was searched, and what was seized. Again, the defense is working the angle that the entire process that led to the evidence or the drugs, the illicit substances totaling 1.4 kilograms, street value of 31,000 United States dollars, and any other thing that was seized were not done properly. Colonel Kromah, giving his testimony, stated that the sheriff of the court was present. The sheriff witnessed the search and seizure, and the sheriff was the one who carried out the search and seizure. So that is what he just said. So according to the witness, all of what was arrested on that day was witnessed by the sheriff who was present to carry on the search and seizure. So Colonel Kromah has said on the witness stand that his agents were not the one who carried out the search and seizure. It was rather the sheriff of the court that carried out the search and seizure in the presence of LDEA and other joint security officers. So the testimony is still ongoing. This is the first question that he has answered, the first out of 3 questions today. The first two questions were objected to by the prosecution, and their objections were sustained by the judge. The third question is, do you confirm that drugs were found in the home of Mr. Obi after the LDEA charged him with unlawful maintenance of the place? Colonel Kromah responded that the sheriff of the court agreed to the seizure of the drugs in the home of the drug lord. So Colonel Kromah has said it was not after he was charged, but during the arrest, during the seizure, the search and seizure, that the sheriff agreed to the seizure of the drugs in the home of the drug lord, the suspected or accused drug lord, and that the sheriff was present, witnessed, and carried out the search and seizure. So what is happening in there? A.B. Kromah is not on trial. Let's get that straight. He is a subpoenaed witness. He's giving a testification, if you want to use the legal term. He is representing the procedures of the LDEA as of the time he was presiding over that institution prior to his suspension. He's also defending the processes and how things are carried out by the LDEA as of the time he was in charge of that institution, and in connection particularly to this case. So if we bring you more updates, if we do get more updates, we will bring you as well. But it's all unfolding there in Criminal Code C, a case that has been widely followed by the media, by Liberians, with the involvement now, the testimony of the former LDEA officer. Remember, his testimony here will be torn apart by those who are not his supporters, and will be held by those who are his supporters. And others are even pointing to the fact that if his testimony in court today speaks to how he ran the LDEA, it is going to also have an effect. Remember, there is an investigative report before the president of Colonel Kromah and two of his deputies, Bauko and Hassan Fadiga, who both have been suspended by the president, including Colonel Kromah. So this testimony is also going to speak to how did he run the affairs of the LDEA. Is it going to have a ripple effect, to whatever the investigative, whatever actions will be taken by the president as well? Because ears are not only listening to this based on what testimony he will give that will affect the outcome of this case, but also it speaks to how he ran the affairs of the LDEA. Was he doing things there arbitrarily? Were they not following procedures? Were they just moving in and doing whatever they felt was necessary in order to bust drugs and all of that, and to have a very positive public perception or image? Remember, this bust occurred just 1 day shy of the 1 month anniversary of President Bwakai's presidency, a president who campaigned heavily on the fight against drugs. And this was a very, very positive PR image at the time for not just Colonel Kromah at the helm of the LDEA, but also the government's fight against illicit drugs distribution, importation, and maintenance in our country. So this is not just about Colonel Kromah, but this is about the LDEA. Interestingly, a few months ago, we witnessed another raid that occurred behind the CDC headquarters in a small town community. It was later established by an investigative report that the rate that was used to execute that particular raid was gotten illegally, and 2 persons have been dismissed according to the report from the judiciary, and that again threw a dent in the fight against drugs. That yes, you want to go after drug peddlers, yes, you want to go after drug dealers, but if you do not do it the proper way, then your evidence cannot be admissible in court. Then you are doing it the wrong way, and it is not yielding any sort of results. But that is a far cry from what is happening. What is happening there is now Colonel Kromah is giving his testimony. Again, I'll step out to gather more information. That's what we'll be doing. We'll be bringing you unfoldings of what's happening in the court, and also giving you historical and analytical references to how did we get here as well. My name is Diamond Slanger. On behalf of the Spoon Network, we remain live here at the grounds of the Temple of Justice.
So, hello folks. So, as you are following, keep following Spoon, and you can also share the live. So, as Damon said previously, we are gathering more information to update you on the happenings here at the Criminal Court C regarding the suspended DA boss, Colonel AB Kromah, sitting at the witness desk to give some testimony of what happened during his term as director before he got suspended. So keep following, and we are here to bring you more update. Damo will be joining us anytime soon from now, as he have gone to gather more information to come and fill us in with more information. We want to appreciate all of you that are following.
All right, folks, we will keep bringing you more updates from within Criminal Code C as the suspended director of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, Colonel Abraham Kromah, is still on the witness stand, giving testimony. And remember, he is a subpoenaed witness by the defense counsel. And interestingly, the defense has now voiced out their displeasure, according to the defense lawyers. They are not happy with, they're not pleased with the answers or response coming from the witness. In their mind, he is not answering their questions properly. So the very defense that prayed the judge to subpoena Colonel Abraham Kromah to provide testimony, the very defense is now voicing out their dissatisfaction at the way or the manner for which he's answering their questions. They have raised their displeasure. They've told the court that the witness is not answering the questions properly, as in properly as to how they anticipated he would have answered, or properly as in it is not through their satisfaction as well. Remember the first two questions that were asked Colonel Kromah, the prosecution objected, and those objections were sustained by the judge concerning those two questions. So Colonel Kromah did not answer those two questions, and those questions were, did he appear on the Spoon Network last night? The prosecution objected that the witness shouldn't answer the question, and that objection was sustained by the judge. The second question by the defense, again, that was objected. They asked him to confirm his testimony given last Friday as to an order that he gave to the LDEA to cut off or to switch off the generator that supplied electricity to the home there of original Japan, to enable the CCTV cameras not to operate and allow LDEA operatives to carry out their action. Again, the prosecution objected to that question, and AB Kromah did not answer. The third question asked by the defense was whether or not for Colonel Kromah to confirm that the drugs were found in the home of Mr. Obi, known as Original Japan, after the LDA had charged him with unlawful maintenance of the place. Colonel Kromah, then answering the first question in the series of questioning, said that, look, the sheriff of the court was there. The sheriff of the court agreed to the seizure of the drugs in the home of the drug lord, and the sheriff witnessed what was unfolding, and the sheriff carried out the search and seizure. After answering that question, the defense, who are still directly examining their witness, have said they've raised an objection to their displeasure as to how the witness is answering or responding to the questions. According to what we've gathered from the court, the defense counsel have said he's not answering their questions properly. So remember, last week Friday, he was nearly declared a hostile witness, by the court. Today seemed like we are treading that very path as well. It's too early to say he's a hostile witness, but the defense have said he's not been declared a hostile witness in any form and manner. but the defense are saying they are displeased with the way he's answering their questions. He's now responding to their questions properly. So we'll bring you more updates from within Criminal Code C. My name is Diamond Slanger. We're here on behalf of the Spoon Network as the Republic of Liberia, by and through the Ministry of Justice, is prosecuting several individuals, namely George Obi, known as Original Japan, Peter Mama, Edwin Ozioko, Nobudisi Okonko, Igwe David, Sunday Ude, and several others as they were indicted by the grand jury of Montserrado County on several charges. And these charges include unlawful maintenance and distribution of controlled substances, unlicensed sale and distribution of controlled drugs, and criminal conspiracy. So the total number, that's the total value of drugs that were seized, is at 1.4 kilograms, and total in cost at 31,625 United States dollars. So the total value of the substances, including kush, marijuana, heroin, that were confiscated, total quantity of 1.4 kilograms, and a street value of 31,625 United States dollars. There are still unsubstantiated claims that a monetary value of 375,000 United States dollars, 2 million United States dollars, a vehicle, amongst other things, were seized by the LDEA during this raid, and they were unreported. Again, we haven't gotten to that question in court, and there are stories running in the various media outlets that the suspended LDEA Director General had confessed, to taking 375,000 unreported money from that bust. Again, we cannot confirm that. And that is the reason we are here, providing you this coverage as to whether or not he's going to give testimony, whether the defense are going to ask questions surrounding what was seized apart from the drugs. But right now, the defense is working this angle. Remember, the work of the defense counsel is to throw in doubt. That is just their work, to throw in doubt, to establish reasonable doubt. The defense is working this angle from all of their questions so far, that look, this arrest that you carried out was carried out illegally. It was carried out arbitrarily. It wasn't done within the confines of the law. So whatever it is that you gathered as evidence from this raid is not admissible in court. It shows bias towards this person. If you testified that last Friday, that based on the fact that you've had several tip-offs that the suspect, the main suspect, the main defendant, George Obi, known as Original Japan, has got CCTV cameras all around his house that he uses as a means to alert him whenever law enforcement is making its way to his residence to conduct a search and seizure or a raid, to use it to destroy evidence or to escape. And you ask your operatives, to turn off the generator so that you could carry out this raid. Does it also mean there are other things that you did during this particular raid, this search and seizure, that could call it a fruit of the poisonous tree, that could call it a misstep, that could call it something that wasn't done properly, illegal, and hence every other evidence that you bring here at this court should not be admissible before court. As I explained to you earlier on, during the pre-trial days, prior to this case coming to court for the proper trial, the defense had filed a motion for evidence to be suppressed, the suppression of evidence, based on their argument that the evidence were not gotten properly. They were illegally gotten, and hence they cannot be admissible in court. That particular petition for the motion for suppression was denied by the judge, and hence all of the evidence gotten by the LDEA during that raid will be admissible in court. Hence, the defense now worked the angle of having the judge to subpoena Abraham Kromah to appear before court. He was the head of the LDEA at the time. He was the lead of this operation, and the defense have brought him through a subpoena, compelled him to come and provide testimony. So he is providing testimony in court. They're looking at the procedures, they're looking at how it was carried out, they're looking at what orders he also gave, what led to these orders, and they are working the angle of, look, this wasn't done properly. This could have been done with bias and malice. If this was done that way, then why is the court looking at this evidence that was brought?
And if a misstep is determined, if that doubt is determined, these defendants might just walk free. But the prosecution so far have been able to quell those questions. The prosecution have been able to object the witness answering those questions, and so far the objections have since overruled the number of questions that Colonel Kromah has answered thus far. So wherever it is you're joining us from, this is the Spoon Network. We're live here before Criminal Court C at the Temple of Justice. Also subpoenaed is the current officer in charge of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, Christopher Peters. He's also to provide the CCTV footage if there is any. Remember, on last Friday, Colonel Kromah said there isn't any CCTV footage from that operation. That was because the cameras operated with electricity, and since the generator was switched off, hence the cameras were not in operation. Again, I'll step off for a minute. Our producer is going to pan around, show you what's happening on the grounds of the Temple of Justice, and once we get more information, we'll come before the camera and provide to you that information. But it's all focused here at the Criminal Court C, which from all indications is going to be the hottest courtroom in the Republic of Liberia for months to come. Remember, the trial of former Finance Minister Samuel Twe and others will commence and take place in this court. Also, tomorrow is going to be the objection to his bond by the prosecution. That hearing is going to take place in this court. So, Criminal Court C, from all indications, is the hottest spot in the country at this moment. Last year, gearing up to this time, all eyes and ears would have been on the National Elections Commission, but this time around, all eyes and ears will be here on Criminal Court C. So let's see if we can get for you more information as to what is unfolding there in the court.
All right, so folks, we are here and we will be here until the final ruling from this case is pronounced. So, as it stands now, Connor Abraham Kromah is at the witness stage and he's testifying. So we are trying to gather more information so that we can fill you with every details regarding this case. So keep following. Damo is searching for more information to come and fill you with every bit and pieces of what is going on here. So as it stands, Abraham Kromah is testifying before the court and he's at the witness desk testifying in relation to the raid that was carried on by him. So we're going to bring you more information on that. So keep following us, keep sharing, and keep commenting. Ask questions, and we're going to answer every questions that you're going to be asking. So keep following. This is Spoon, and I'm Joris Joe here with Damos Langa as we fill in with more detail here at Criminal Court C. Again, tomorrow there will be a court hearing for the former finance minister, Samuel Twe, tomorrow, and we're going to be here tomorrow, same time, to provide every detailed information regarding that case. All right, folks. So as it stands now, the April Kromah is still testifying before the judge, and after then we are yet to receive any information as to whether he's gonna provide every evidence in relating to that case. We are yet to get informed, but we are still trying to gather more information to fill in with that. So we are still trying to dig deeper to get more information as it relates to this case. So we are here, we're on ground of the Temple of Justice, and we are at the Criminal Code C, where um, Abraham Command suspended LDEA Boss or director has been subpoenaed by the court. So keep following, keep watching, keep sharing.
Okay, folks. Sorry for taking a little break because we have to bring you all of the information that's unfolding in the court. We have to make sure we just don't stand and talk as to how we got here, but tell you what is unfolding in the court as well. So the defense, remember, Conor Kromah is still being examined directly by the defense. He is their subpoena witness. So he is providing testimony as they question him. So the next question asked him is that as head of the LDEA at the time, how did you get to know that Mr. Obi's compound was a drug empire? Again, the defense is wanting to know whether or not the LDEA had prior intelligence, and if so, whether or not the LDEA at the time was operating on a bias. So the witness responded by saying, when Mr. Obi was arrested, he openly told journalists about the compound and said he could not be held liable for the situation. So, according to Colonel Kromah's testimony, he is alluding to the fact that he did not know that Mr. Obi or his compound is a drug empire. They only went there to execute a search and seizure warrant. As to how the compound was then declared a drug empire, Colonel Kromah, in his response, is alluding to what he termed as Mr. Obi, the owner of the compound, known as Original Japan, who, doing his expose to journalists after he was arrested, talked about the compound and what was in the compound and all of that. So Colonel Kromah, in his response, have basically, if we can summarize, said that it was Obi himself who implicated himself and said that his compound was a drug empire. So looking at the number of questions answered so far, the witness has, according to what we've gathered,
answered just 2 of the 4 questions that have been asked by the defense counsel. He took the stand at about 11 a.m. It's 11 minutes after 12 p.m. here in Liberia. So he has basically been on the witness stand for an hour and 11 minutes. Of the hour and 11 minutes, he has answered 2 out of 4 questions. This is his second day of providing testimony. We'll recap what was said on Friday. Kromah spoke about, how they went on the raid, how the CCTV footage were not accessible because he had instructed one of their sources within the compound to turn off the generator that provided electricity to the compound and subsequently powered the 20 plus CCTV cameras that covered the compound from all angles. According to Kromah's testimony, once that was done, the LDEA then went on their raid. That raid, which resulted into several illicit substances being confiscated, including heroin, kuch, marijuana, totaling 1.4 kilograms, a market value of 31,000 plus United States dollars. Now, on his second day of providing testimony, Kromah arrived wearing a blue. So I have to step away from the sun for a minute. Yeah, so Jurassic is going to, adjust the position of the camera so that we can continue this coverage as well. So today is the second day of Colonel Abraham Kromah providing testimony. He is a subpoena defense witness. The defense in their petition, they say that his testimony is pivotal to their case as well. They prayed on the judge to subpoena the now suspended LDEA director. So he's currently there giving account through his testimony day 2 as to how when he was head of the LDEA at the time, they carried out this raid that happened on the 21st of February 2024. He's still serving a suspension after a number of incidents that occurred during his term there as the head of the institution, involving he and 2 of his deputies. That is totally unrelated to this case, but all of that has got some kind of interconnection. His testimony here, how he answered questions as to how he presided over the running of the LDEA, is also going to give an insight into whether or not accusations made against him of arbitrarily doing things, of not following the book to do things, will also be addressed to a larger extent. Remember, prior to answering the 4th question, the defense, raised an objection, a displeasure. According to them, they are displeased with their subpoena witness as to how he is answering questions directed at him by the defense attorneys. They said he's not answering the questions properly. As to how properly, that is for the defense to give us their own definition in context of properly at this time. 4 questions have been posed to him. 2 of the questions were objected by the prosecution. Those 2 questions, the objections were sustained by the judge. The judge of this court is Judge Blamo C. Dixon. So charges and those defendants that are currently on trial here, charges against them include the following: unlawful maintenance and distribution of controlled substances, unlicensed sale and distribution of controlled drugs, and criminal conspiracy. They were indicted by the grand jury of Montserrado County after they were arrested during a search and seizure operation, a raid, a drug bust, if you want to call it, on the 21st of February 2024 in the Sion Town community within Logan Town on the Bush Road Island. So some of the defendants include George Obi, known as Original Japan, Peter Mama, Edwin Ozioko, Nubudisi Okonko, Igwe David, Sonny Ude, amongst others. So they are all standing trial here at Criminal Code C on the same indictment and on the same charges. So the, this case is currently ongoing. The state is prosecuting as in all criminal cases, and the defense, according to our constitution, the accused has got the right to a defense. So the defense is in there working their angle to prove that indeed there is reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt could arise from missteps, procedural errors, and all of that. Remember, as I said earlier, during the pre-trial stage of this case, the defense have filed a motion to suppress evidence that the evidence shouldn't be adduced in court. According to the defense, the evidence in this case to be used for this trial, the evidence were not gotten properly, and hence they shouldn't be used. Well, the judge denied and declined their motion, and the evidence will be used. So the next question is, the defense counsel asked the witness, prior to the arrest of the defendant, Mr. Obi, you have been knowing him, and both of you had a business deal. AB, the suspended director of the LDEA, has responded by saying, yes, I knew him as a car spare parts dealer for a long time, and for us who have old cars, normally go to do business with him by buying spare parts for our cars. But later did I know that beyond that business, he was involved in drugs business upon his arrest. So again, the defense is working the angle that the suspended drug enforcement agency director might have known Mr. Japan, or Mr. Obi, might have had relationships with Mr. Japan, and might have already have had a bias against him and knew what was going on in the compound. The defense is working the angle that, look, if you knew him, if you knew what was happening, if you had relationships with him, how come you're telling us you didn't know that he was involved in this? You know, how come you're telling us that you went on this raid in the dark? You know, if you knew him so well, then you knew about his house, you knew about, you know, the generators and the CCTV camera, and how are you now distancing yourself from him? You know, the defense is trying to establish bias and doubt. They're trying to establish that, look, there might have been some type of malice, there might have been some type of bias, there might have been some type of extra motivation that would have, you know, propelled the then director of the LDEA to have, you know, not taking caution in how he proceeded, but rather they're working it out that based on these things, you know, missteps were done based on malice, based on whatever. But Colonel Kromah has responded by saying that, look, I don't know him personally. What I know him to be is a spare parts dealer, and yes, I do know him because I've bought spare parts for him. So Colonel Kromah is, in his response, he's separating himself that, look, it's only been about buying spare parts and it's been about nothing else. He said, for those of us who own old cars, we normally buy spare parts. So in his defense, he has responded to this question by saying that, look, I don't know him apart from buying spare parts from him. And I'll read the response again. The question from the defense is, prior to the arrest of the defendant, who's Mr. Obi, you have been knowing him and both of you have had a business deal. Colonel Kromah answered in the affirmative that, yes, I know him as a car spare parts dealer for a long time. And for us who have old cars, we normally do go to do business with him by buying spare parts for my cars. But later did I know that beyond that business, he was involved in drugs business upon his arrest. So Colonel Kromah in his defense has said, yes, he knows one of the defendants, Mr. George Obi, known as Original Japan, but only knew him to be a spare part dealer until he was arrested in his home, searched, and drugs discovered before he got to know that he's doing something else apart from the spare parts business. So now 5 questions have been asked the defense witness, the subpoenaed defense witness, Colonel Abraham Kromah of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, the suspended director, and he's been able to answer so far 3 of these questions. He's been on the witness stand for 1 hour, 21 minutes, and his testimony is going to resonate not just within the walls of this courtroom, but outside of the walls of the courtroom as well, where he's been portrayed as someone who's got relationship with drug barons. He knows the in and out of the drug dealers and their trades, and he allegedly confiscated and did not report 375,000 United States dollars and all of that. But from what we can tell you is the LDEA's procedure for arrest, search, and seizure is also under question. The defense is working the angle that it might have been done wrongly, it might have been done with malice, it might have been compromised based on relationships that might have gone sour. That is why the defense asks that Conor Kromah, did he have a business deal with Mr. Obi? Is it that this business deal went wrong and hence this arrest? Is it that the substances that were found in the defense previous question, they asked that, look, you only said you found substances after the DEA went into the compound. So the defense again was working the angle that if you have a relationship with him, if you have a business deal with him, if things went south and you didn't like it, did you ask for the search and seizure warrant, turn off the CCTV camera to be able to plant the drugs and implicate this person? Remember, the job of any good defense team is to point and build doubt. And that is the angle they're working. So we want to see if we can bring you more of the updates from within the court as it unfolds. My name is Diamond Slanger. I'm here with Jurassic Joe on behalf of the Spoon Network. We'll be bringing to you all of what is unfolding there in Criminal Code C as the suspended director of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, Colonel Abraham Kromah, is providing testimony. He is not the one on trial, but he is a very, very crucial witness that has been subpoenaed by the court to appear and give testimony on behalf of the defense. So if you're just joining us, we'll do a recap of his day one of appearance and currently day two as to what is unfolding. We'll bring you up to speed with how did we get here, what's the names of the defendants, and what angles are being worked so far. So the defense that have previously raised, concern and a displeasure over how the suspended LDEA boss is answering the questions have been able to ask five questions for which the suspended LDEA director has been able to answer three of those questions. Two, according to the defense, weren't answered properly as to how they had anticipated or expected those questions to be answered. Two of those questions were objected to by the prosecution, and one answered after the displeasure raised by the defense. So, folks, we'll remain right here, providing you more updates as we try to get you more information as well. So again, another question asked by the defense is, remember Conor Kromah said that it was only spare parts business that he and Mr. Obi, one of the defendants, were involved with. Now the defense have asked again that beyond the spare parts business, your security firm, the Pilot Security, was doing business with him, and that UAB is indebted to him 2,000 United States dollars. You made several promissory notes but refused to pay until his arrest. And Conor Kromah has now answered and said, yes, my security firm did business with him, but I'm not indebted to him. That is untrue. So now, aside from saying that it was only spare parts business that he and one of the defendants, George Obi, known as Original Japan, were involved with, now the defense has been able to get Conor Kromah to admit that it was not just only spare parts that he purchased from Original Japan, but his security firm also provided services to this defendant, and that he was indebted to him 2,000 Conor Kromah United States dollars. Conor Kromah answered again. Now it's now been established from his testimony that it is beyond just the spare part purchasing, but also his security firm was doing business with one of the defendants, George Obi, known as Original Japan, and he said yes, they were involved in providing security to this George Obi, one of the defendants, but he's not indebted to him 2,000 United States dollars as asked or stated by the defense, and that is untrue. So from the previous question, where he only stated that it was only spare parts business that he and one of the defendants were involved with, it's now been established that it's beyond spare parts business by his own admission on the witness stand that his security firm was also doing business with Mr. Obi. But he has said he does not have any form of debt owed to Mr. Obi, 2,000 United States dollars, and also did deny that he made promissory notes and has refused to pay until the arrest of one of the defendants. So it's getting more interesting in there as Colonel Kromah is approaching the 2 hours mark on the witness stand. We're shy of 30 minutes, 1 hour 30 minutes of him being on the witness stand, and we'll see if we can provide you more updates as well. So wherever it is you're watching us from, this is the Spoon Network. We're live here just before Criminal Code C, and my name is Diamond Slanger. The suspended head of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, Colonel Abraham Kromah, has been subpoenaed by this court, and he's providing testimony. He's providing evidence on behalf of the defense. The defense petitioned the court to have subpoenaed him, and currently this is his second day of providing testimony. From his testimony so far today, we've been able to establish that yes, according to him, he has known one of the defendants, the key defendant, George Obi, Original Japan, for a number of years, that he's bought spare parts from him, that his security firm also provided services to him. He denied being indebted to him. He also talked about the search and seizure warrant being enforced by the sheriff of the court, that the sheriff was present, and that he only got to know that George Obi was involved in the drug trade after his arrest, and he didn't know prior. So it is getting more interesting in the court as well. So we'll take a short break, take a breather, to be right back here from Criminal Court C. All right, folks, it's getting more interesting there in Criminal Court C, as the suspended head of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, Colonel Abraham Kromah, is still on the witness stand in this court, providing testimony, providing oral testimony to this court as per the request of the defense, and granted by the judge through a subpoena. So now it is getting to the relationship establishment, being done by the defense. If as you're following the testimony. The defense is slowly working their witness. Their questions are now taking the form for which they're clearly pointing that, look, you've had a relationship with this person, a business relationship. You've known this person. Did you know him to be a drug baron, a drug dealer? And if so, when did you get to know? How did you carry out this search and seizure? When was the home declared a drug empire? And it's getting more interesting because right now they suspended head of the LDEA when he was asked the question. The first question, that established relationship, knowledge of this person. How well do you know this person? He was quick to point out that it has only been a business deal based on the purchasing of spare parts. He failed to have said during his first answer to the first question, and that question was, prior to the arrest of the defendant, Mr. Obi, you have been knowing him and both of you had a business deal. Remember, the defense counsel only said a business deal. They did not go to the specification of the business deal. They left it vague and they just said, you've had a business deal. Colonel Kromah responded and said, yes, I know him as a car spare parts dealer for a very long time. And for us who have old car, we normally go to do business with him by buying spare parts for our cars. But later, did I know that beyond this business, he was involved into drugs until upon his arrest. Now, Colonel Kromah left out the part that his company has been doing business with this defendant, and the defense counsel came back to work that question, but now was specific in working that question. The defense then asks again, beyond this car spare parts business, your security firm was doing business with him, and that you, AB, is indebted to him 2,000 United States dollars. You made several promissory notes, but your refusal to pay until his arrest. Now you see the defense is working this angle again, that look, you've known him, you've done business with him, you failed in the first question to have said what kind of business deal you had with him. But now we can remind you and let you know that your company has been providing, your security company has been doing business with him, and you owe him, thank you, you owe him $2,000. Prior to his arrest, you made several promissory notes to pay, and you haven't paid. And then the suspended LDEA boss confirmed that yes, his company did business with him, but is not indebted to him. So Colonel Kromah has now come back to admit that apart from buying spare parts from original Japan, his pilot security firm has been doing business with this individual, one of the defendants, but was clear to point out that AB does now owe original Japan $2,000. Again, the defense counsel is working the angle that you might have known him, you might have done business with him on several occasions, different business angles. You have been owing him according to the defense, and that again is a recipe for malice. That again is a recipe for being biased, and that is why the defense asked that, look, drugs were only discovered after the DEA carried out their exercise. You might have planted the drugs. They needed not to have said it in open, plain language. But if you are working the angle to say, look, you only went there, and the time you went there, that time drugs were discovered there, who took the drugs? There is no CCTV footage to show where the drugs were discovered. The LDEA has said they have a full recording of when they went into the compound, how they went into the compound, what was arrested, and where they were arrested. But the defense is working the angle on that evidence that it came from you. If it were going to come from the CCTV footage that nobody tampered with, that nobody had control over, it would have been more admissible in court. So now a lot is happening in the courtroom, according to this testimony. But Colonel Kromah have said, when he was asked the question, that look, we didn't go there as the LDEA alone. We had the sheriff of the court there with us. The sheriff was the one who carried out the search and seizure. The sheriff witnessed everything that happened during the search and seizure operation. So again, the procedure for which the LDEA carried out that search and seizure, the procedure for which the bus was conducted, where and how the bus was conducted is what is being questioned by the defense. The defense is working the angle of creating doubt to say that, look, this wasn't done well, that this might have been a prior business arrangement that went south, that this man having a position of power as the head of the LDEA and now wanting to pay monies owed, had the option of planting these narcotic products because there is no CCTV camera to show, there is no footage because they had prior intent, so they switched off the generator so that they could have operated unseen and unreported. So now, as the questions are coming in, the testimony in the court being given by the suspended director of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, Colonel Abraham Kromah, is even getting more interesting by the moment. As we get more answers to these questions, we will be providing you those answers. So a drug bust that happened on the 21st of February 2024 that led to several suspects, and for which we counted 9, but the lead of these suspects is known as George Obi, alias Original Japan, is currently what is ongoing. The total value of the different substances that were discovered is at 31,000 plus United States dollars, and the total quantity is put at 1.4 kilograms. These substances include kush, the dreaded kush, heroin, marijuana. The suspects also include the following names: George Obi, Peter Mana, Edwin Ozioko, Nubudisi Okonko, Igwe David, Sunday Ude, amongst others. And the charges they're currently facing here in Criminal Code C include unlawful maintenance and distribution of controlled substances, unlicensed sale and distribution of controlled drugs, and criminal conspiracy. So the 9 defendants are currently in court wearing their orange corrections suit. The defense subpoenaed defense witness, Colonel Abraham Kromah, is wearing a blue jacket, sky blue on the shirt, and blue pants. He was accompanied in court by several of his supporters as well. So this is his second day of providing testimony, and we 21 minutes shy of him being 2 hours on the witness stand. So wherever it is you're watching us from, this is the Spoon Network, Spoon TV, coming to you live from just before the entrance of Criminal Court C. So I take a short water break to be back, and we'll give you more updates as to what is unfolding in the court as we speak, as the suspended LDEA boss continues to give his testimony.
Hi, folks. We just saw the entry of the Solicitor General of the Republic of Liberia, Councillor Augustine Faya. If our camera pan, you see a couple of police officers carrying their automatic rifles. We just want to point out to you that the details of the Solicitor General, there isn't the heavy presence of state security here at the grounds of the Temple of Justice, specifically here at the grounds of Criminal Code C. It's relatively calm. There is free movement of people, and there isn't the hindrance of movement by state security, either than the normal protocol that affects dress codes to entering these premises. Apart from that, that is the Solicitor General in the gray-like suit there. He just entered. He was in conversation with the judge, Judge Blamo Dixon, as to what was discussed. We were out here. We cannot tell you the crux of their conversation as well. But the suspended head of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, Colonel Abraham Kromah, is still on the witness stand, and he's approaching the 2-hour mark. So he's been asked a question again by the defense. The defense said that the question is, prior to your entry into the premises, some unknown men entered the compound, and it is believed that they were the ones that planted the drug there. What do you have to say? That question was objected to by the prosecution, and the judge sustained that objection. So the suspended LDEA director couldn't answer that question. So the question again asked by the defense is that prior to your entry into the premises, some unknown men entered the compound, and it's believed that they were the ones that planted the drug there. What do you have to say about that? And the prosecution objected to that question, and the judge sustained that objection. That is the third objection by the state to questions posed or asked by the defense. Again, we'll go back over questions being asked by the defense, and we'll talk about the angle that's being worked by the defense as well. The defense is working this angle that there was a specific purpose. There was already a conceived plan by Colonel Kromah as head of the LDEA, and that he already had a sour business relationship with George Obi, known as Original Japan, that he was indebted to him, that there is and has been malice based on the indebtedness, and that the evidence found was only found after the LDEA had raided the compound, minus the surveillance video from the CCTV cameras, that it was intentionally done by the head of the LDEA to have asked some of his how we call them, informants and sources planted within the compound of Original Japan to switch off the generator. That again, according to this question, unknown men entered the compound of Original Japan, and they planted the drugs there, that the drugs did not belong to the suspects or any of the suspects, and all of this was just a cooked up plan. And what better way to execute this plan than switching off the CCTV camera and getting rid of somebody you have indebtedness to? That is one of the angles the defense is working with these questions. The defense has already been able to establish that there has been a business relationship between Mr. Kromah and Mr. Obi. Mr. Kromah, who had earlier said that the business relationship was only based on the purchasing of spare parts, later, after a subsequent question was asked, admitted that it was beyond, the purchasing of spare parts, but also his security firm provided services to Mr. Obi, but he is not indebted to Mr. Obi in the tune of 2,000 United States dollars. So let's go over questions that have been asked by the defense so far. Remember, Mr. Kromah is a subpoena witness. He's a defense witness. He's been compelled by the court to appear and provide evidence and answer questions posted by the defense, and he will subsequently be cross-examined by the prosecution. So it all started today
at about 11 a.m. When Mr. Kromah had entered the courtroom. He's dressed in a blue blazer or jacket, if you want to call it that way. He's wearing a blue undershirt and blue pants as well. Navy blue like jacket, sky blue undershirt, and navy blue pants. So when he entered, today is his second day of providing testimony. Friday was shorter because he needed and he prayed the court to have gone to observe Friday prayers. That request was granted by the court and he was, recessed from the witness stand. Today he entered, he took the stand. The continuation of the trial started around 11 a.m. As I said, we're 8 minutes shy of him being on the witness stand for 2 hours. Remember, he has not yet started to be cross-examined by the prosecution. So the defense began their examination of their witness and asked this question. They asked him to confirm his testimony made on. So the first question was, he was asked whether or not he appeared on the Spoon Network last night, but the state objected to that question, and that objection was sustained by the judge. So the witness, A.B. Kromah, did not answer the question whether or not he appeared on the Spoon Network last night. The second question asked by the defense was for him to confirm his testimony he made on last Friday about an order he gave the LDEA to cut off the generator that supplied electricity to the CCTV equipment, the house there of original Japan, to prevent the alleged drug lord from viewing the officers as they carried on the operation and the arrest. So the defense asked Colonel Kromah to confirm a testimony that he gave on last week Friday, where he stated that the LDEA had cut off the generator that supplied electricity to the compound, subsequently to the CCTV camera equipment for the LDEA operatives to carry out their operation. That question again was objected to by the prosecution. That objection was sustained by the judge. So by that question, the defense was attempting for Colonel Kromah to say, yes, the testimony I gave on last week Friday is the same. I stand by that we had to cut off the generator to be able to turn off the CCTV camera and for our operation to be carried out. According to Colonel Kromah last Friday, the CCTV equipment served as surveillance, not just for the compound, but outside of the compound, that whenever law enforcement agents are en route to execute a search and seizure, with the footage and the surveillance of the CCTV camera, the prime suspect, original Japan, will then discard whatever illegal substances are there within its compound, and the search will be unsuccessful. So for the LDEA to have carried out a successful search and seizure, they had someone planted in the compound who turned off the generator before they could have carried out the search and seizure. But the state objected to that question, and hence the objection was sustained by the judge, and Colonel Kromah didn't answer that question. Then the third question asked by the defense was, do you confirm that drugs were found in the home of Mr. Obi, original Japan, after the LDEA had charged him with unlawful maintenance of the place? So the defense again was asking the question that the LDEA suspended boss should confirm whether the drugs were discovered after they had conducted their search and seizure and subsequent arrest of original Japan. But Mr. Kromah answered by saying that the sheriff of the court agreed to the seizure of the drugs in the home of the suspects, and that all of what was arrested during the fateful day was witnessed by the sheriff, who was present to carry on the search and seizure warrant. So Colonel Kromah in his answer said that, look, the sheriff was there. The sheriff agreed to the drugs and other items, the drugs that were confiscated. The sheriff was the one who carried out the search and seizure warrant. So there is no way that you can say that the drugs were discovered after we went there. Remember, take a key note of this particular question. The defense again was painting the picture, the pointing and working the angle that the drugs were planted. That is why the question was coined in the way that, can you confirm that the drugs were actually there after your arrival? So Colonel Kromah said that, look, the drugs were discovered by the LDEA agents in the presence of the sheriff, and the sheriff was the one who carried out the search and seizure warrant. So we move to the next question. Before that next question, the defense then raised a displeasure to the court. The defense attorneys said that, look, the witness is not answering our questions properly. We are dissatisfied with the answers being given by the witness. They then proceeded to ask their next question. The next question was, Mr. Witness, as head of the LDEA at the time, how did you get to know that Mr. Obi's compound was a drug empire? So again, the defense working the angle whether or not there was already a preconceived mindset. There was already tipped to say that this place was a drug empire before the LDEA moved in. Colonel Kromah answered and said that when Mr. Obi, original Japan, was arrested, he openly told journalists about the compound and said he could not be held liable for the situation. Remember, Mr. Obi, in his defense, said, yes, he's the owner of the compound, but he does not know what is happening in the compound. There are several occupants in the compound, and any of those occupants could have been the one involved in the illicit maintenance, in the illicit distribution, in the illicit or illegal sale of illegal substances. So Mr. Kromah, in his response, said that, look, it was original Japan. It was Mr. Obi, when he was arrested, who openly told journalists about the compound, about what has been happening in the compound, and that he, the owner of the compound, in Mr. Obi, original Japan, couldn't be held liable for what was unfolding there in his compound. Then the defense went to ask another question and said that the question from the defense is, prior to the arrest of the defendant, Mr. Obi, you have been knowing him, and both of you have had a business deal. The defense question again, prior to the arrest of the defendant, Mr. Obi, you have been knowing him, and both of you have had a business deal. Colonel Kromah, the witness, responded by saying, yes, I know him as a car spare parts dealer for a long time. And for those of us who have old cars, we normally go to do business with him by buying spare parts for our cars. But later did I know that beyond the business, he was involved into drugs business upon his arrest. So Mr. Kromah then, yes, admitted to knowing Mr. Japan, original Japan, Mr. Obi, the lead defendant, that he has had a business deal with him by buying spare parts, because according to his own admission, Mr. Kromah's admission, that he owns old cars, and normally old cars need spare parts, and it was just about buying spare parts, and he did not know that the lead defendant, Mr. Obi, George Obi, known as original Japan, was involved in the illicit trade of drugs until after he was arrested. The prosecution then, the defense then came back with another question, a follow-up question to that. Your security firm, the Pilot Security Firm, was doing business with him, and that UAB is indebted to him in the tune of 2,000 United States dollars. Mr. Kromah, the witness, answered and said that, yes, my security firm did business with him, but I'm not indebted to him. So he failed to have established, he failed to have said that apart from buying spare parts, his security firm was in business with Mr. Obi. But after the follow-up question, he did admit that, yes, we've been in business with Mr. Obi. My security firm has been doing business with him, but I do not owe him. So the defense then went to ask another question and said that prior to your entry into the premises, some unknown men entered the compound, and it's believed that they were the ones that planted the drug there. What do you have to say? The question was objected to by the prosecution, and that objection was sustained by the judge. So Mr. Kromah didn't answer to the question where the defense was alluding that some unknown men had entered the compound of George Obi, known as Original Japan, and these unknown men were the ones who planted the drugs that were subsequently found by the LDEA. So the defense is working the angle that, look, you knew him, you've known him, you've done business with him, you indebted to him, you had the generator switched off so that these unknown men would have entered the compound, planted the drugs, then you move in, go and find the drugs without the operation of the CCTV camera, so that you can pin this on him and have him arrested, subsequently prosecuted, and when found guilty, convicted. That is the angle the defense is working. So instead of Mr. Kromah providing a testimony now, it is moving in the direction whereas he is now on trial to not only defend how this operation was carried out, but also defend his character and relationship and whatever preconceived malice the defense might be working. So let's move to the next question. So the defense asked the next question that UAB took a CCTV evidence that showed that two men with backpack entered the compound without permission, and those men went into the compound, planted the drugs. The CCTV recording can set all the defendants free. Where is the CCTV evidence that the LDEA took from the compound? It is getting more interesting in Criminal Code C. The defense is holding no punches back. They're saying that Colonel Kromah took the CCTV evidence that showed that two men with backpacks entered the compound without the permission of the owner, and those men went into the compound and planted the drugs, and that the CCTV recording can set all of the defendants free. So now the defense has asked, where is the CCTV footage from the compound that the LDEA took? Now Colonel Kromah has responded that this is a very big lie intended to deceive the court, that there was no such CCTV recording and he did not take any CCTV evidence as it is being alleged. So now the defense is saying that, look, you took away the evidence, you planted those men entered without permission, they planted the drugs, you knew that the CCTV footage could have shown that and it would set all of the defendants free, but you have taken away the evidence to be able to suppress it and have the evidence withheld to convict these defendants. And Colonel Kromah responded that it's a very big lie, that the LDEA did not take away any CCTV footage and is intended to deceive the court, and that there was no such evidence as being alleged. So he's going back on his previous testimony that the generator was switched off and that the CCTV equipment wasn't working, and the defense is working the angle that you had the footage, you took it away, you switched off the generator, you had unknown men enter the compound, they planted the drugs, you went there, you knew where they were, you found them, and you have implicated this defendant George Obi because you have got a previous unpaid debt with him, and you have now indicted the rest of the court defendants, all 9 of them. And the fact that you cannot provide this evidence, the fact that you are holding this evidence, is the reason we are here. And if you provide the evidence, it will be shown that 2 unknown men with backpacks entered the compound prior and they planted the drugs. I can tell you for sure, we heard murmurs and groans from within the court. It is getting very interesting as the testimony being provided by the suspended head of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency continues there in Criminal Code C. He is a subpoenaed witness. He has been compelled to appear by the court, and this is his second day of providing testimony. The testimony being provided by the witness, Colonel Abraham Kromah, is going to go far beyond making sure that the defense can establish reasonable doubt, or that the prosecution can make sure that there is no reasonable doubt, that is beyond reasonable doubt, that these defendants be convicted. It is going beyond that scope and painting him as someone who has operated outside of the confines of the laws that governs the LDEA and the Republic of Liberia, that he is a vindictive person, that he is a person who has withheld evidence, that while he was in charge as the head of the LDEA, a lot of unscrupulous things were done to get at those for whom he had issues with. That is what is being portrayed by the defendant, the defense counsel, as the suspended head of the LDEA gives his testimony. So the defense, during the pre-trial of this case, said they filed a motion for the suppression of evidence, that all of the evidence gotten were not gotten well, and hence they shouldn't be admissible in court. So the defense is still on the CCTV footage. The LDEA charge sheet shows that the CCTV footage was in your custody at the agency's office. Why is it not in court? Where is it? So the defense again is still on the CCTV footage. The defense is saying that, look, this CCTV footage, when it's provided, is going to set my clients free. So the LDEA charge sheet has got placed in it that there was CCTV footage. So where is the CCTV footage? Why is it not in court? Where is it? That is the question being asked by the defense, and we are waiting to get the response from Colonel Abraham Kromah. So the defense is saying that there is CCTV footage. The LDEA, in their own charge sheet, wrote down the availability and the presence of a CCTV footage. So where is the CCTV footage? That is the question being asked by the defense counsel as he approaches the 2 hours 7 minutes mark on the witness stand. The defense seem to be piling up their questions in a series. They're coming after each other, and now it's now on the CCTV footage. They firstly started to establish that there has been a relationship prior to the arrest, that there has been indebtedness, establishing malice, establishing, vendetta, establishing bias. The defense then went to work the angle that if you owe this person, if you've known him for years, you've had business deals with him, you might have been dissatisfied with the fact that you owe him, and now you're in charge of the LDEA. You send people to go and place evidence, and your men were seen in the compound, 2 unidentified men. You turn off the generator so that the CCTV camera couldn't have, shown the entire operation, captured the entire operation, and your own charge sheet stated that you had in your possession a CCTV footage, and it was at your agency's head office. Where is the CCTV footage, and why isn't it in court? Wherever you're watching us from, this is the Spoon Network. We're live from the Temple of Justice on a sunny Tuesday afternoon here in Liberia. The suspended head of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, Colonel Abraham Kromah, is currently on the witness stand, and he's being grilled by the defense attorneys. This is the case involving 9 individuals who were arrested on the 21st of February 2024 in Sion Town on the Bushra Island, and they were indicted by the grand jury of Montserrado County, and the lead defendant is one George Obi, known as Original Japan. Found in the compound includes illicit substances such as kush, heroin, and marijuana, totaling 1.4 kilograms, an estimated value of 31,000 United States dollars. This is the Spoon Network, and we're live from just before Criminal Court C here at the Temple of Justice. The responses given by the suspended director of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency is going to have a ripple effect far beyond the 4 walls of this courtroom. It's the defense working the angle that the known, the number 1 enforcer against drugs in our country has had outstanding relationships and even indebtedness to drug peddlers and drug dealers. And how can he be the head of the agency and be compromised? This is one of the many questions that his testimony there before the court is either going to answer or is going to leave unanswered. So far, the defense has established that aside buying spare parts, that Mr. Kromah, the suspended head of the LDEA, did and does know this Original Japan fellow, George Obi, that his company, Pilot Security, did do business with Mr. Obi, that it was just beyond buying spare parts, but they also had other business arrangements, including providing security. The defense also, though Mr. Kromah denied that accusation, alleged that Mr. Kromah has got a 2,000 United States dollars indebtedness to this George Obi, Original Japan, the owner of the compound, that he had refused to pay until this Original Japan, known as George Obi, was arrested. He made several promissory notes but failed to have paid. Mr. Kromah vehemently denied that particular accusation, though he did state that yes, aside buying spare parts, for which he stated was the only relationship that he has had with George Obi, and now transcended to providing security services as well. So we're waiting to see if we can get more questions from the courtroom as the witness is on the stand. My name is Diamond Slanger. I'm here with Jurassic Joe. It's 12 minutes after 1 a.m. That's 1 p.m. The witness has been on the witness stand for 2 hours and 12 minutes. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back as we get you more information as well.
All right, folks. We are doing our best to get you more information as to what's unfolding there in Criminal Court C as the suspended boss of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, Colonel Abraham Kromah, continues to provide testimony. He's been examined by the defense counsel. Remember, he is a subpoenaed witness, and there are two types of subpoenas. There is the subpoena a testificado, where you come and give evidence, oral evidence as to what you know about a process or about something. And there is the subpoena to testicon. That is where you come and give evidence. You compelled to come and give evidence to the court, including bringing material evidence to the court as well. So it's not oral, it's based on material evidence that you bring to the court, and then you testify to that evidence. So far, what we can tell you is unfolding in there is Colonel Kromah is doing more of the attestation, right? He is giving attestation to questions asked. He's giving attestation to events, what he knows about. He's giving his oral testimony as to what he knows about as well. He's been subpoenaed by the defense counsel. The defense filed a petition to the judge, Judge Blamo C. Dixon. That petition was granted. A subpoena was subsequently issued on Colonel Kromah. To the defense, his testimony is pivotal to acquitting these defendants. His testimony is pivotal to acquitting their clients as well. This is his second day of providing testimony. He started off on the witness stand on Friday, and that testimony was cut short because he pleaded with the court to have gone to observe Friday prayers. He was nearly declared a hostile witness by the court based on how he responded to questions as well. On Friday, Colonel Kromah in his testimony said that yes, he ordered the LDEA to switch off the generator that supplied electricity to the compound of one of the suspects, George Obi, known as Original Japan, based on the fact that they had gotten information that the CCTV camera provided not only surveillance of the compound, but also around the compound, including the major roads leading to the compound, that whenever there is an attempt to carry out a search and seizure of the compound, the occupants using the surveillance provided by the CCTV camera will then do away with any incriminating pieces of materials within the compound. So based on that, for their search and seizure at this time to have been a successful one, the electricity was turned off. As to who turned off the electricity within the compound, we are yet to know whether that person is an occupant of the compound, an LDEA informer, and if so, how did the person gain access to the compound to be able to turn off the generator in the compound. But then he was let off the witness stands to return on today. On today, he appeared in court early this morning. As early, we arrived here as early as 10 a.m. We did see the suspended LDEA boss wearing a navy blue blazer or jacket, if you want to call it that way, a sky blue undershirt, and a navy blue pants as well. He had beams of smiles on his face. He was accompanied in the courtroom by several of his supporters. The trial then resumed. He talked to the witness stand and was asked several questions by the defense lawyers, and we are going to go over those questions as we await a new round of questions that have been asked to the suspended LDEA boss. So the defense began today. Their first question was to the defendant as to whether or not he appeared on the Spoon Network on last night, for him to confirm that he was the one who had appeared on the Spoon Network last night. But that question was objected to by the prosecution. That objection was withheld or sustained by the judge. The defense moved to their next question. The next question was for the witness, Colonel Kromah,
to confirm his testimony that he made on last Friday about an order he gave to the LDEA to cut off the generator that supplied electricity to the compound and to the CCTV equipment in order to prevent the alleged drug lord from viewing the officers as they carried out the operation and arrest. Again, the prosecution raised an objection to that question. That objection was sustained by the judge. So the first two questions asked by the defense were not answered by the witness, Colonel Abraham Kromah. Then the defense moved to ask their third question. The third question reads, do you confirm that drugs were found in the home of Mr. Obi or Original Japan after the LDEA charged him with unlawful maintenance of the place? The witness, Colonel Kromah, responded by saying that the sheriff of the court agreed to the seizure of the drugs in the home of the suspected drug lord, that all of what was arrested during the operation on that day was witnessed by the sheriff, who was present to carry on the search and seizure warrant. So that was the first question he answered with no objection raised by the prosecution. Then the defense raised a displeasure. They did state that the witness was not answering the questions properly. They were not satisfied with his answers or responses to their questions. Then they moved to have asked their fourth question to the witness. The question is, Mr. Witness, as head of the LDEA at the time, how did you get to know that Mr. Obi's compound was a drug empire? And then the witness responded by saying that when Mr. Obi, Original Japan, was arrested, he was the one who openly told journalists about the compound and said he could not be held liable for the situation. Mr. Obi, in his defense, said that, look, the compound has got several inhabitants, and any of these inhabitants or any of those inhabitants could have been the ones who had the drug that was discovered. He also stated that he didn't know what was happening in the compound, but the prosecution was quick to point out that, look, you have over 20 pieces of CCTV cameras positioned all around this compound, and the central monitoring device of these footage coming from the various cameras is in your room. You are the one who is the one who reviews all of these surveillance videos coming from the CCTV cameras. So how can you now say you're not in the know of what is happening in your compound when all of these cameras, you are the one who've got all of the feeds, you are the one who sees all of what is happening from the various lenses of these cameras positioned around your compound? And then the defense then proceeded to ask their next question. They said, prior to the arrest of the defendant, Mr. Obi, you have been knowing him, and both of you have had a business deal. The defense then went to establish whether or not the witness have known one of the defendants, Mr. George Obi, the owner of this compound. And then the witness responded by saying, yes, I know him as a car spare parts dealer for a very long time. And for us who have old cars, we normally go to do business with him by buying spare parts for our cars. But little did I know that beyond this business, he was involved into drugs business until upon his arrest. So Mr. Kromah was quick to point out that yes, he did know Mr. Obi, but it was based on buying spare parts, and he limited to his answer to just the purchasing of spare parts. The defense came with another follow-up to this question and said that beyond the car spare parts business, your security firm was doing business with him, and that you, AB, is indebted to him in the tune of 2,000 United States dollars. Remember, the suspended LDEA boss, when responding to the first question of whether he knows the defendant and whether they've been doing business together, only limited his business engagement to buying spare parts for his old vehicles. But then when this follow-up question was asked, he admitted that yes, he knows the defendant and his company has been providing services to the defendant but denied owing the defendant George Obi, known as Original Japan, 2,000 United States dollars. And then the defense proceeded to their next question and said that, look, prior to your entry, that is the entry of the LDEA operatives into the premises, some unknown men entered the compound, and it is believed that they were the ones that planted the drug there. What do you have to say? The question was objected by the state, and the judge sustained the objection. So Connor Kromah could not answer that question. The question the defense asked was, so again, the question asked by the defense is that prior to your entry, that is the entry of the LDEA into the premises, some unknown men had entered. So from what we gathered, the witness has been recessed off the witness stand. We want to see if we can speak to Connor A.B. Kromah as he exits the courtroom. We want to see if we can speak to Connor Kromah as he exits the courtroom. But so far, he has admitted to knowing Original Japan. He admitted to not only buying spare parts, but also his security firm providing services. He did deny the issue of $2,000 indebtedness to Mr. George Obi, Original Japan. He did say he only got to know that he was involved in the drug trade after his arrest, and that the search and seizure was carried out by the sheriff of the court, and the sheriff was present when whatever it is that was seized from the defendant's residence. So folks, wherever it is you're watching us from, this is the Spoon Network. We're live here from the entrance of Criminal Court C at the Temple of Justice. Supporters of the suspended LDEA director have also gathered here, but the defendants will be taken out of the court, and once he exits the court, we will speak to him. The defense have been able to work their angle that this might have been preconceived, that this might have been done off the books, that this might have been done out of malice, that the witness knows the defendant. He knows the defendant so very well that they've had several business dealings. The defense was able to establish that, look, apart from buying spare parts, you provided security services to him. You were the one, according to your own admission, as for the operative purposes, had the generators switched off, that you have CCTV camera. So there he is. He is now exiting the court. We'll see if he can speak to us quickly. He is being greeted. You can see the number of supporters. He is not the one on trial, but he is a very pivotal witness to this case. Let's listen to this lady.
Ask the president. We're crying to the president to listen to our cry, and call you back to office, because our children, they are dying. Children are dying. Go to Central Street. Children living in the graveyard. We born the children. They will send them to school to learn something and do something for us tomorrow. But when they learn, they finish with college, they attend to drugs. So we are crying. That person, and President Bwanga, listening to our cry. So we want for you to go back. We will stay by you and we will be with you. And I think this gun.
So after being let off the witness stand, it's now turning into a gowning ceremony. Just right here before Criminal Court C, you listen to a lady who has made a passionate appeal to the suspended head of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency. He's being gowned.
Mr. Kromah, I wear this gown. I said, I'm supposed to you.
Showing their support. A hat is being placed on his head. So after giving this testimony, this is what is unfolding now. He's been gowned just right with the Liberian flag in the form of a sarge being placed on his neck. But let's see if we can speak to Connor Kromah quite quickly. Connor Kromah, this is the Spoon Network, sir. Diamond Slanger and other reporters would like to speak to you. From the line of questioning from the defense, what exactly, as you stated, is your relationship to one of the defendants?
What my relationship? Yes. No, the guy is a businessman. Back in the days, before I became director of the DEA, and even prior to becoming director of 102, Mr. Obi had presented himself as a clean businessman, so everybody interacted with him, and so that was what it was. But when I didn't have any understanding as to what he was, because I didn't have privilege to state intelligence, to DEA intelligence. When I became DEA director, all of those intelligence were exposed to me, and it was shocking to know that Mr. Obi was one of the major suppliers of drugs in the on the Bushel Island. And because of that, it became very apparent that we wanted to put a stop to his drug dealing. And I felt from the intelligence that when he stopped, a lot will happen in the drug market. And when we did the raid, the price of kush left from $100 to $250 because it became scarce. So for me, it was an opportunity to actually go after all of these citizens without malice. I mean, I'm a law enforcement officer. This is something I've done 35.
That is the angle the defense was working, that you might have had a malice. The defense alluded to a $2,000 debt. Alluding that you preconceived and placed people that implanted evidence. What say a few to that particular accusation and angle?
That's preposterous. That doesn't make sense. If you look at the event, the turn of the event, you realize that what Mr. Obi was talking about had no validation. He was struggling. He's fighting hard to actually cover his dealings while he was supplying the folks with drugs in that community. And to say, well, AB went, the DEA went and planted drugs, it's nonsense.
The defense also talk about CCTV evidence. What do you know about it?
The CCTV evidence, as far as I'm concerned, we'll leave that to the folks that would carry on the raid. But what I can tell you, there were others like you, other folks who were there, recorded the event as it is from beginning to end. So if there was any kind of evidence that we're looking for, the evidence is planted right in there.
Is it standard practice to switch off electricity that provides CCTV power to a CCTV equipment? Is it standard practice to do that? And if so, what was the intent of the LDEA at the time under your command to have had the generator switched off to carry on your raid?
All right, this is what it was. There have been so many attempts for agents to come in there, but Mr. Obi was sitting in a control room monitoring what was happening to the guys in there. Even if it's not recorded in the hard drive, it was recorded face to face. You could see the video, people coming in and out. So as a result, while the officers were coming in, he will use the stamp and then cover up stuff as it is. So at the end of the day, we said to ourselves, according to what the officer told me, that this was a means to evade, to stop him from monitoring them for coming in. And at the end of the day, when the folks got that, when they stopped the drugs, when they stopped the current, the CCTV monitor that was there stopped providing information to Mr. Obi, and the guys went there undetected. And that was what it did. But no, the CCTV situation you're talking about, because the generator were off and the CCTV were off, every evidence that you have in there is clearly recorded by the generator, by your folks that were there, by these guys. Sky Television were there. They will have, and I will ask the court to allow to subpoena, send a very good subpoena, the defense counsel, send a very good subpoena people. They can go subpoena the Sky people, and you guys can come and produce your news, your footage that you got there, so that to alleviate or allay the fear that they have.
You said Mr. Obi took several hours of minutes before he could open the door for you. What was his main aim?
Because you were destroying evidence. He was flushing. When we opened the door finally, you went to his bedroom, in his bathroom, you could see traces of coach and other stuff in there. And at the end of the day, you still found drugs in his place. They got actually.
What exactly did the defense subpoena you to come and explain to?
What's that?
What exactly did the defense subpoena you for?
You saw what we were in there. You saw exactly what we said. This is what they wanted to do. They wanted to ask questions. Look, let me tell you what they did. Let me tell you the tactics they were trying to employ. They said they wanted to bring me in as a witness because my name is A.B. Kromah. I'm the suspended DEA. I've been suspended for a little while. So they thought I was a little angry with government. So they would have used the anger there to give questions that will be in favor of their prosecution. I mean, their defense. But then they forgot to know that I have a 37 years history in law enforcement, and I'm a sworn law enforcement officer, and I owe allegiance to this country. I'm a government functionary. I'm just suspended. I'm not dismissed. So you expect me to come and debunk the witness, the evidence that I collected myself. But it was foolhardy. It was something that's why I asked the guy, which law school you graduated from? I'm a man. I'm all I went to the same law school, so I want to find out which law school they went to. But basically, we just crack joke and things like that. But what I intend not to do today, I intend not to go to the main cause of the trial, since in fact the trial is still going on, something like that. But it was a good interaction. It was a little bit. It became personal at some point in time, so we took it for that point. Yeah. Yes,
thank you, Mr. Kromah.
Yeah.
I'm concerned. Currently,
I come here.
You are on suspension, right? And
yes.
What I understand is this investigation will conduct
That's
your investigation, right? Now, I'm concerned because this is a major case that government might need. And then you have your chief of that officer in charge. Mr. Peter came before the court when you were subpoenaed, and he made a court understand that he has no idea concerning this case. So is it that when you're leaving as suspended and a DG, you did not present all of the information or evidence to him? Because this is a case that you are still in the chain. You are still a government, employee or appointees. So what are you guys doing? What's the tactic?
I can tell you this clearly. Since I left that place, Christopher Peter has not communicated with me. One time. He claimed to people that he's been calling me and not answering, which is false. However, my experience in law enforcement is far older than his time because he's one of my students at the university. And then he left the police force as a patrolman. So probably he has not grabbed the document. No. He has, when I left from the police force, when I left from the DA, he had the option to follow up on this thing. And I didn't have the opportunity to do the turnover, not to him, because he was suspended right there and then, and we left the place. I didn't even take any of my thing with it, so I didn't have the chance. But I would have thought that Christopher Peters would come to seek some guidance, to seek some understanding why he's serving as the OIC.
Mr. Kromah, Mr. Kromah,
Christopher Peter, you have no idea of the case.
You know what? Christopher Peter is his own man.
Mr. Kromah,
I wouldn't want to dwell into his perception. Verbal thing like that, I don't mind.
My question to you, Mr. Kromah, you just said Mr. Peters didn't reach out to you. Did you try reaching out to him? That's my question. That's one. And my second question is, when you look at what unfolded in there, sir, are you still interested? You just got petitioned again by a group of women to go back to the DEA if you called. Are you still interested in heading the DEA and leading this fight against drugs as you started?
You know, as a parent and as a Liberian, nobody in a sound mind would want to turn their back on this fight.
Thank you.
For what it is now, look at the gun I'm getting from folks here. This is not charade. This is something that the folks, the camera already see this thing. This is not a charade. This is genuine parents who have been victimized by this menace. They want to appreciate me for it. I can't turn my back. It's not possible. I can't turn back. But that is left for this president. This president has wisdom. He knows exactly what he's doing. We'll leave it to him. But I know he knows where we've been and where we come from. So
thank you. No more questions.
All right, so there you have it. Abraham Kromah is the suspended boss of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, speaking there, questioned whether or not he still wants to lead the affairs there at the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency. He has said he's a parent. He's still interested in the fight. Drug is eating the fabric of our society, and he, if when called upon by President Bwakai, will continue there at the LDEA. As to the relationship between he and the current OIC of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, he has said that Mr. Peters didn't reach out to him. As to why Mr. Kromah, didn't reach out to Mr. Peters in a very crucial sector of our country, he said to do what? That is what is unfolding. The OIC, when he testified, said he has no knowledge about this case, no knowledge about the burst, and that is why Mr. Kromah, who was in charge at the LDEA at the time, was subpoenaed by the court. So there you have it, folks. The Spoon Network here representing, making sure we give to you all of what is unfolding at Criminal Court C. As you can see, Mr. Kromah and his loyalists, his people, making their way from this courtroom. We'll continue to bring you all of the unfoldings as this case continues to be tried here at the Criminal Court C, Temple of Justice. Jurassic Joe has been producing for us. Thank you so much for watching. We're able to have provided you with everything that unfolded in the courtroom, and we'll continue to do that as well. The Jeep Wrangler, the ash-colored Jeep Wrangler, has got on board the suspended director of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency. Brought a large contingent of followers, sympathizers as well, and they have been behind him through it all. Whatever your perception, your take is from his testimony there within court, the defense counsel was able to establish that Mr. Kromah had known Mr. George Obi for a long period of time. As to whether it was just spare parts purchasing or providing security services, the defense counsel worked the angle that indeed there has been a relationship. The defense asked the question whether there was indebtedness that led to malice. As to far, the prosecution objected to 3 of the 5 questions, and the witness answered 2 of those questions. As to when he will return to the witness stand, we'll give you all of that information as we get the notes from the court. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Diamond Slanger. On behalf of the Spoon Network, big thanks to Jurassic Joe as well for being behind cameras. Have for yourselves a wonderful afternoon, and bye-bye.